So, welcome to the professional wellness session, Mr. Titus Nichols.
Thank
How
you for
are
having
you?
me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and engaging in such an important conversation about professional wellness. And before we get too deep in, I am going to read your bio. I know you. However, I want to make sure I give you your due flowers and just share with the listeners and viewers your information. So, you are the owner of Nichols Injury Law, which is a personal injury firm that represents people who have been severely injured due to the negligence of others. Prior to opening his own law firm, he served as a violent crimes prosecutor. We're definitely going to talk about maintaining wellness as a prosecutor. In addition to being a civil lawyer, Titus also is a major in the United States Army, where he serves as a judge advocate general. As a JAG, Titus has represented soldiers and advised commanders in various forms of hearings and government investigations. For the past 4 years, he has had the privilege of being an adjunct professor for the University of Georgia School of Law. You have been on TV dozens of times as a legal expert. Your most recent appearance was on the Oxygen Network series Real Murders of Atlanta. Titus has also served as a political commentator on various news outlets, including Fox News, The Atlantic, Salon, or is it Salon or Salon?
I've always called it Salon. I
Salon.
honestly don't know what's the right way or wrong way. I just say Salon.
It's
Yeah,
probably Salon.
I could be wrong, but this is what I've always called it.
Vice News and Crooked Media. And I recently heard you on Crooked Media on What a Day, that podcast. He is a graduate of Morehouse College, my Morehouse brother, and the University of Georgia School of Law. You live in Marietta, Georgia, with your wife Stephanie and your daughter Harmony. And in your spare time, you can be found serving as a chauffeur for Harmony to her many, many birthday parties and play dates. So you've got a lot going on, and I'm sure
Yes.
the one that requires the most of you is being Harmony's dad.
Yes. Yeah, that like I was saying before, like today's a good day because I actually got to sleep in till like 8:30
Mhm.
because that was before Harmony comes busting in the room because Harmony is our alarm clock. So when she does not have, and it's so funny too. On school days, oh, she never wants to wake up. She stays in her bedroom. But when she doesn't have school, oh, she comes busting in the door. Stephanie is a morning person, so she's usually up already.
Mhm.
Me, I'll be in the bed sleeping. Harmony will come in and remind me, Daddy, it's morning. It's morning. Basically, hey, everyone else is up. You need to be up too.
Mhm. Yes. And Harmony is turning 4. Is it in a few weeks?
Yep. Next month, April 17th, she'll be 4.
Okay. Wow. Well, being a dad keeps you busy in addition to everything else that I listed. So you are a lawyer, you serve in the military as a major, and and you're a professor at
How,
UGA. So
how,
how are you doing it all?
it's a juggling act, and I have a great wife who backs me up because I wouldn't be able to do. I mean, even just from the military standpoint, I would not be able to serve without having a wife who holds down the fort when I'm gone. Like I remember 2.5 years ago, after there was a hurricane in Louisiana, I think Hurricane Ivan, it's something with the I. So a hurricane hit end of August. They thought it was going to be Hurricane Katrina Part 2. So the leadership decided to call in a whole bunch of state National Guards. So
Mhm.
my state gets called in, they send over a military police unit. Well, since I'm a JAG officer, they're like, oh, well, you should go with them. So I get a phone call on Sunday from my Brigade XO. She's like, hey, what's your availability? We need you to go to Louisiana. Like, okay, for how long? She's like, up to 30 days. Well, wait, up to 30. Well, where am I going to be? She's like, you don't know. You might be in the field. So bring your outside gear and equipment. Well, how much time do I get to plan? She's like, well, you need to meet up with your unit in about 48 hours. So I had 48 hours to prep my wife to the fact that I was going to be gone to Louisiana for about a month. And this happened to be in September. So, A, we had a trip planned that month to New York. which she had to do alone with Harmony. B, it was my birthday, and it was our anniversary too. So it's just like the military just, just very inopportune timing. But that's just an example of just how, even though I'm serving, she still has to serve too when I get called away to do military stuff.
Yes, that's so important. And as I said, I know you. I met you at it was a Spelman Morehouse. I think I met you and Stephanie at a Spelman Morehouse Christmas party many, many years ago. And I remember that time when you were when you had to go to Louisiana and talking to Stephanie and when she had to go to New York and that that might have been her first plane ride with Harmony.
It was
And
having
just
to pack, having to pack up everything, Harmony's car seat, her book bag, luggage, and everything else. And I could not be there to help because I was deployed to halfway across the country.
yes. So I think it's really important to look at, first of all, what does professional wellness mean to you? And how has that changed when you were single and then married and now a dad? Like, how has what you do to practice wellness, has that changed?
I think I think it's for me, I never really thought about wellness until law school because law school is such a artificially difficult environment that it purposely throws all these different things at you, and you have to find a way to study, to prepare for your exams, to interview, to do all these extracurricular activities, and then somehow try to find time to have a life. And so it starts in law school, in which everything is just dumped on you and you are expected to figure it out. And you're expected to maintain your own mental sanity. So then after law school, you're thinking, okay, well, as soon as I get done with law school, it'll be a little bit easier. It is not. Because then after you get done with law school, now you're tossed into a profession. And the thing about the going from school to profession is there is law school teaches you about the law. It does not teach you how to practice law. And it certainly does not teach you about the business of law. When you enter your profession, you are entering the business of law. Employers don't really care too much about your mental health. At least when I came out in 09, 2010, 2011, mental health wasn't really a popular catchphrase for corporations or law firms, or they did not care. They were just like, look, we're paying you, do the work. Oh, you need time off? Well, you find it on the weekends, go find something to help you relax. But Monday through Friday, you're on call. Maybe even more than some firms, you're on call whenever because they're paying you to do the work. And so for me, it's just been a constantly evolving exercise in how do I maintain my own sanity while still trying to grow as a professional. And it's not easy because, when I was single, it was just, okay, well, I'm gonna go into the office on Saturday because I'm gonna get a jump on my work. I ain't got nothing else to do, right? It's Saturday, whatever. I can, I got more energy. So I can go do something during the day and then the evening I can do whatever I want. Then when I got married, it was okay, well, now I'm accountable to somebody else. So I can still stay in the office later. I just need to be mindful and let Stephanie know, hey, I'm getting ready to leave, or hey, I'm going to work on this, or hey, do you need me to stop by a store, X, Y, and Z. Now that we have harmony, I have to be even more mindful of when I stop working because I don't have the luxury of, oh, well, I can just come in on the weekends, or oh, I can just let work late because when I work late, that's putting more pressure on Stephanie because now she has to do bath time and story time and feed Harmony and keep her entertained or whatever. When if I decide to go into the office on a weekend, Harmony hates going into the office with me. She does not enjoy that at all. So she's got to stay home with mommy. Well, now that's more pressure on Stephanie. Or what if Harmony has something planned, like a birthday party, which, oh my God, to be in daycare, these kids always have birthday parties. They got more social activities than I do, and I'm a grown man. So there's stuff that Harmony's doing on the weekends, or maybe my family wants to do, my mother and my sisters, or Stephanie's family wants to do something. So I can't. Someone once said a phrase that the law is a jealous mistress in the sense that there's always more work to do. I don't have the luxury of being able to carve out a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon where I just go do some work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's so important that you're highlighting that because I think we are evolving. There's still a lot of evolution left, but we're evolving as a society where it's not only focused on moms and well, how do you balance it all, but also taking into consideration dads. And as you're sharing, like this is how it's been different because I am taking my wife into consideration and understanding that this is because we're in a partnership. And when I'm taking on these responsibilities or carving out time for this is how it's impacting the household.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right, exactly.
that's
Everything I
something
do
to
has an
consider.
impact on the household. It's not just, and it's funny because I talk to some of my colleagues who, they might be second or third generation lawyers, and when they grew up, it was understood that dad was going to be in the office working, and mom would have to handle cooking and everything else and raising the kids, and that's just the way it was.
Mhm.
Nowadays, it's not like that. Like when I go to drop Harmony off at daycare in the morning, I see other dads there dropping their kids off too. When we go to the birthday parties, I see the same gathering of dads to the point that we
Mhm.
recognize each other when we're at the birthday parties. It's
Okay.
not just, oh, well, my wife does that and I just work, 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 work.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Times are changing. Times
Mm-hmm.
are changing, and it's a good change. So, with when you were a violent crimes prosecutor, what did wellness look like for you at that time?
So being a prosecutor, particularly a black prosecutor, it's
Mhm.
a different journey than my white colleagues. And I say that from the perspective of as a violent prosecutor, most of the times my defendants look like me. They're young black men because we as young black men just don't think 5 steps into the future. And so we will haul off and hit or shoot or do whatever to somebody, not realizing the grave consequences that come from it. We angry. Oh man, you were talking mess. Man, I stand on business. And so they do stupid stuff. And that was the majority of my defendants is that they were not inherently evil or bad people. They just did stupid stuff. The problem became is that they would do stupid stuff that would end in violence. So now, because Kenny robbed you of a pack of weed, you shot Kenny. Well, now you about to go to prison for decades because you can't just let that slide. If you had just
Mhm.
like it's the hard part is also the fact that you're dealing with defendants who look like you, but also victims who look like you. Because my defendants would always go after people who live close to them. Like crime was always local. It was always
Mhm.
in the person's neighborhood. I very rarely
Mhm.
saw a defendant go to the well-to-do suburb and commit a crime. It was always in their own community. And so you have this victim who didn't have much to begin with. Now they got even less because the defendant shot them and now they're in the hospital. Or the defendant kicked in the door and stole their stuff. And now the victim has lost their sense of security because of what the defendant did. And now the
Mhm.
government has to come in afterwards and hold the defendant accountable. And that means going to prison because the defendant has no money. There is no rest. You can require restitution all you want, but it might as well be paying with monopoly money because the defendant doesn't have any money. So the only accountability is prison time.
Mhm.
And so specifically with violent cases, you're having this case where this young black male has committed a violent crime. There's a victim who deserves justice. I would always try to offer a plea deal to the defendant, something that I felt was reasonable because A, I knew what the worst case scenario was going to look like. B, I did not want to see someone get life in prison or get decades in prison if they would accept responsibility and take a lower offer. So I had one case, it was an armed robbery where this guy jumped out of a car, robbed this one guy who was just walking down the street, made him strip down his clothes, and then when the victim tried to run away, the defendant fired a shot at him. Thankfully, the defendant could not aim to save his life, so he missed him. But it's still the fact that you made a stranger strip to his underwear and shot at him when he tried to run away.
Yeah.
I get the case. All of his co-defendants rat him out. Like there's no question he did it. No question that he was there. No question he did it. It's open shut case. I knew what he was looking at as far as maximum penalty, and I tried to avoid it. So I offered him a much lower offer. His lawyer tried to get him to take it. His own grandmama was telling him in the courtroom to take the offer. He refused to, just absolutely flat out said no. Went to
Mhm.
trial. Jury, a majority Black jury, found him guilty. He got 50 years in prison.
Mm.
And so from my standpoint, it's hard on me. It was always hard on me because yes, I'm glad that he was held accountable. The victim got to see the government fighting for them for the first time. Because many times, maybe my victims, this is the first time they've ever seen the government actually fighting for them. They're
Mhm.
used to the government like saying, you owe us money or you didn't do this, do this. So the
Mhm.
victim got to see that they got justice. The defendant was held accountable, but it still was hard on me knowing that the defendant's life is done. I mean, even if he does half of that sentence, that's still 25 years of his life gone that he's going to
Mhm.
spend in prison. And I tried to, and it's like the fact that I tried to offer a lesser sentence, it still doesn't alleviate the burden because at the end of the day, it's his life is over. And victim's life, we've given him justice, but we can't take back what's been taken from him. And imagine if the victim had been shot. We can't fix his body. We can't fix the damage that's been done to him. And so
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, there are some people who absolutely love being prosecutors. They feel like this is their mission, their calling, and more power to them. We need those people who truly enjoy and truly recognize the responsibility of carrying a badge. But for me, it was just someone has to do it. It just don't got to be me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's and I've heard other people, lawyers share that difficulty of being a prosecutor, and especially when you're prosecuting people who, where you can, there's that connection,
Mm-hmm.
based on race or based on culture or based on, especially if you're prosecuting in an environment where you grew up. And now it's okay, wait a minute, I'm prosecuting my cousin or a friend, a family friend's child or grandchild. And so just all of that comes up, but you still have
Mm-hmm.
a job to do
Right.
and just
Or
making
like
sure.
I would get defendants who'd be charged with possession of crack, and I'm like, all right, I got relatives who do this stuff. Like, how
Mhm,
can I villainize this person? Is it
mhm,
wrong? Yes, it's wrong. Were they selling it? Were they shooting it? But no, they were just sitting in their house smoking crack. It's stupid, but I can't necessarily villainize this person. Be like, oh, you deserve to sit in prison for years, and it's
yeah,
like, and then that's the hard part. You're like, I know people who do this stupid stuff, and they got their flaws, but are they really a monster? It's the difficult, like you said, it's you have to do your job, but at the same time, it's still tough to do that job because you're like, you know, this person isn't a monster. I got monsters who I need to go after, who I need to
exactly.
dedicate government resources to go after. This little ticky tack stuff, you just being stupid, not
Hmm.
necessarily you a violent person in the community.
Hmm. And so how did you practice wellness? How did you practice wellness like while you were in that position? And it wasn't that, you had to do your job. So how did you maintain your well-being?
For me, it was learning what case was worth going to trial and what case wasn't. And so when you start off as a prosecutor, you think every case is important. You think every defendant has to be held accountable or else there'll be injustice. As I got more experience, I started to realize I'm not, I'm going to put all my time and energy into a case. It needs to be something significant. And also recognize that juries don't care about small ticky tack crimes. Like some prosecutors say, oh, well, this county, this community, they don't care about law and order. Yes, they do. They don't care about ticky tack crimes. Like they don't care about someone stealing scrap metal. Like they're like, why did you call me into this court? I took time away from my job and my school and whatever just to hear about someone stealing scrap metal. I don't care about that. Whereas if you're talking about, look, this is a murder, this is a bank robbery, this is something, then people care about that because people don't matter what
Hmm.
you are, black, white, Latino, don't nobody want crime. Nobody wants violent crime in their community. And they all can agree, all right, if you can prove it, he's wrong, he needs to be held accountable. And so for me, it was realizing what case is worth my time and energy. So I stopped, not that I stopped caring, but like if it was a smaller, lower value case, I would resolve it quickly. I'd be like, look, let's just do probation. Let's do this. Like I would use all the tools I have as a prosecutor to resolve the case so that I wasn't spending all my time prosecute someone for some ticky-tack offense that the jury don't care about, and personally, I don't care about. Then when you get to the violent cases, it's more of, okay, this is a serious case. I need to dedicate my energy towards this serious case. What now, in terms of trying to find wellness, it was also recognizing that I have to have professional separation from the case. Like I'd have to realize, okay, I'm leaving this at home, or I'm leaving this at the office, not at home. I'm leaving this case at the office, or there's only so much I can do for this case. A prosecutor who I worked with, older guy, he used to have a saying. He was like, after a trial is done, give yourself 3 days. If you won, give yourself 3 days to celebrate. If you lost, give yourself 3 days to feel bad and mope about it. After those 3 days, you need to move on. You can't continue to either just celebrate about, oh man, I'm so great at this, and you can't continue to wallow in it. So for me, I actually followed that rule. If I lost the case, I'd pack up my stuff, go home, and I'd have a bowl of cinnamon swirls. And that was my way of dealing with losing a trial. And I stuck with that because it can drive you to just fixate on stuff you can't control. I can't control crime. I can't control, the lifestyle that leads somebody to commit a crime. All I can do is once the file's on my desk, then I deal.
Yeah. That's good. That's good that you had your way of coping by getting high on that sugar.
Yes, cinnamon swirl. Go home, have a bowl of cinnamon swirls. And then if I won, feel good and celebrate for 3 days. And after that third day, I forget. I need to put it out of my mind and move on to the next case.
Yeah, that's something that I think it's important for people, for all professions, to have a way of coping and just maintaining their well-being and leaving things at the office, because as a therapist, that could be hard. And especially, I think early on, it's not as hard anymore. There are different times where it may be more difficult, but early on working with trauma, especially sexual trauma, it was hard to just leave that at the office, and just finding a way to balance. And it doesn't mean that you don't care. Doesn't mean that this isn't something that you're passionate about, wanting to find justice for people or helping them, as a therapist, helping them cope through traumas. But getting to that place of understanding that it's better for them if you are overall well and not bringing things with you. So, what have you noticed that there are different things that you need now that you are no longer a prosecutor? Is there I don't know, I guess, experience with wellness that you need to implement?
It is, because now that I have my own business, I've learned that, so there's levels to being an entrepreneur that I did not come from an entrepreneurial background. My mama didn't have her own business. I didn't learn. I'm learning as I go along. You can have a business, doesn't mean that you're running a good business. You have a profitable business. Again, doesn't mean that you're running a good business because it's profitable. There's so many different tiers and layers to running a business that it's, number one, I can't compare myself to the way someone else is running their business, because unless I can see their books, I don't know what they got going on. All I see is just, whatever they post on social media, whatever they tell me. So I have to focus on running my own business in a way that's comfortable for me. And so that could I make more money if I worked 7 days a week? Absolutely. Make more money if I work 12 hours a day. There's lots of things I could do to bring more money to my business, but that would also affect time with my family. It would affect my mindset, my mental wellness, because if I'm constantly thinking about the job, that's just adding stress to me. I have to step away. Like, I leave the office typically about 5:36. I usually get into the office about 9. But I drop Harmony off at daycare. Like that, my day starts dropping her off at daycare. I don't even schedule anything. Like when lawyers like, hey, let's schedule a meeting deposition, I'm like, all right, we can do 10 o'clock. I ain't scheduling nothing at 9. That's part of my mental wellness, is I make sure that first and foremost, I drop Harmony off at daycare, then I go to the office, and then I go into doing whatever I do, and then 5:36, I go home. Is there still more stuff to do? Absolutely. There's always more stuff to do, which is a gift and a curse. but I can't stay in the office all day because the extra 2 hours I spend in the office, that's 2 hours less I'm spending with my family.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's when I think back to something that one of my instructors told me when I first joined the Army. Because I so when I joined, I was 30 years old when I joined the Army. I had been a prosecutor for several years. Me and Stephanie had just got married the year before. And so I had a life going in. Unlike other soldiers who are like 18, 19, 20, I actually had a life and education going in. And so I talked to one of my instructors and I was like, well, sir, how do you find balance being lawyer, soldier, and a parent and husband? He was like, I don't. He was like, balance is a bad word. He was like, because
Mhm.
balance means you are splitting yourself evenly.
Yes.
33, 33, 33. He's like, nobody wants only a 33% of a lawyer or 33% of a husband. He was like, what I try to do is I try to find harmony, which is very funny because that's my daughter's name. He's like, I try to find harmony. He's like, some days I'm a great husband and father. Other days I'm a great lawyer. My best days I'm 2 out of 3, where I can be a great lawyer and father and so whatever it is. But he says he also tries to find, he gives himself grace and forgiveness when he can't meet a certain obligation.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do with everything I've got going on. Some days, I'm Captain America. I'm a great soldier. I'm in uniform. I'm doing whatever. But I also know that that's time away from my family, or time away from my practice. Other days, I'm just super lawyer. I am in the office, doing all the fancy lawyer stuff that we're supposed to be doing, and I'm putting my military stuff to the side or whatever. Other days,
Mm-hmm.
my best days, it's family guy, right? We're going on vacation. I'm Thursday, Harmony does gymnastics. So I'm sitting there watching her do gymnastics on Thursday evening. And then I also have to accept the fact that there are some opportunities I have to let pass by because, like, military opportunities, like there were one opportunity, my commander had asked me if I wanted to go on a mission to Germany. I would have loved to do it. But I realized what the effect it would have had on Stephanie and her job and everything else. So I had to say no. And so I have to continuously give myself that grace and forgiveness and recognize that some days I'm going to be a crappy soldier, crappy lawyer. And I just got to find heart, like a
Mm-hmm.
symphony. Sometimes the brass has the attention or the woodwinds, sometimes the woodwinds and the brass. And you just have to try to find a way to keep the song flowing in a positive way. Otherwise, there's always something more I could be doing.
I love that. I love to think about it as harmony and thinking about it as a symphony and giving yourself, like you said, that space and that grace to realize I can't be 100% at everything at the same time all days. Like that's just not
Mhm.
possible.
It's not possible. And what's going to happen is, at least
Mhm.
with me, when I have tried to be all things to everybody, I just end up being crappy at it because
Mhm.
I'm burnt out. I
Mhm.
get aggravated. Stuff don't work out the way I wanted to because I didn't have time to really do it the way I wanted to, and then it just ends up being bad. So it really just like I should have just said no in the first place. So I feel like
Yeah.
I've gotten better at saying no to stuff. Like looking like the lawyers or the business owners that I know that are the most frustrated are the ones who don't know how to say no. I'll say no in a heartbeat. Like I will look at something and some like even if it's a case, they're like, hey, won't you do X, Y, and Z? And I'll think to myself, I see how this is going to go 6 months from now. 6 months from now, ABC is going to happen. And then I'm going to get tied up because I know I'm not going to get less busy the next 6 months.
Mhm.
So why am I going to take on this task when there is a strong possibility I'm going to be busy doing something else? And then that's when you get into the conflict of, man, I got to do this, I got to do this. So I'm very big about if I say yes to something, I carve it out on my calendar to make sure there is nothing else around it.
Yeah.
I'm very particular about, okay, I'm doing this thing for 4 days, 3 months from now. It's on my calendar. I make sure I don't put anything else anywhere near those 4 days. If anybody asks me, I say, nope, I'm not available those 4 days because that's the only way I can dedicate the necessary time and energy to that task if I know I've cleared everything out and everyone else knows, all right, don't ask Titus to do anything during these few days. He's not going to be available.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thinking in advance. And so many times, and this gets to my last question for you. I had a special request from a family member for you to share some tips for people who are newer into their career as lawyers. And one of those tips that I'm hearing is don't just think about the present. You have to think about the future. And when you're younger in your career, there may be that eagerness to say yes to so many different things and that fear of if I say no, what might happen. But are there any other tips that you have for managing wellness when you're younger or newer in your career as an attorney?
I would say as a young lawyer, the thing you need to focus on is what skills am I developing? Because there's this constant tug when you're a new lawyer of A, you want to get a good job, B, you want to do well at that job. But on the other side, the employer may or may not care about you growing as a lawyer. Maybe that employer just needs a warm body to do the work or
Hmm.
to do whatever that makes that employer money. And if that's the case, that's economics, fine, whatever. But you as a lawyer have to be mindful of how am I growing as a professional? If I'm at this firm or this organization, this office, and I'm not growing as a professional, why are you still there?
Yeah.
And as a young lawyer, you're eager to you want to take on the difficult task and show that you're capable and do it. That's fine, but you also have to recognize that at some point you got to learn to say no. If you know that this is stressing you out, if you know you don't like doing this thing, say no. Now, your employer might not like it, but at the end of the day, it's not about you making your employer happy. It's about you growing as a professional. And why that's important. You might be a young lawyer right now, but in 3 years, you're going to be more experienced. 5 years. Where are you going to be as a lawyer 3, 5, 7, 10 years from now? Are you going to have a whole toolkit of experience that you can call upon and different skills that you've developed? Or is it going to be, well, I was a good employee for this one firm or whatever. And I know how to do this one particular thing because whenever they asked me, I always did it. I didn't really like doing it, but I did it because I was a good employee. Okay, but how does that help you in the long term? So, yes, you want, like I said, so for young lawyers who might be afraid to say no because they think the partner might get mad at them, people are gonna get mad at you. Just accept that. That's you cannot avoid people getting mad at you as a lawyer. That's just the reality. What you can control is the work product that I put out. Did I give my best, or was I split in 5 different directions because I didn't know how to say no? Or am I stressed out because I'm doing something I don't like doing? Like it has taken me time as a lawyer, as a professional, to get to a point where I can recognize I don't like this type of law. I don't like this type of client. I don't like this type of whatever it is I don't like. And so I avoid it.
Yeah.
Now when you're a younger lawyer, you don't really have that luxury. But
Mhm.
part of growing as a professional is learning how to say, I'm not going to bring any value to this situation because I don't like doing this type of law, or I don't like working in this area, or it takes too much time and it has me working after hours or on the weekends. I'm not going to be effective because it doesn't work for me. And so you have to learn how to push back. Now, granted, you're a brand new lawyer. You can't just be like, no, I ain't doing none of this because you ain't going to be employed very long.
Very true.
But you have to learn to create boundaries. Because if you don't create boundaries, no one's going to respect it.
Exactly.
Because an employer is just thinking, oh, let me give this work to so and so. Oh, they always say yes. You've got to learn to create boundaries to say
Hmm.
no, or I can't do that. I can do this, I can do that, but I
Yeah.
cannot do this thing right here.
Boundaries is so key. It is so key. And it does. It's like people can tell the importance of saying no and the importance of setting boundaries, but it can be hard when you're young in your career. And it's like, I know they're saying no. And this is where you can counter it. But they can say that now because they're established and
Right,
I don't
right.
have that. And I know when I first started my private practice, I took so much. I'm not a morning person, not at all. I had 8 a.m. clients. It's like, why was I doing that? Which, of course, I've got 8 a.m. clients. That means I'm Sometimes I'm pulling into the parking lot at 8 a.m. or 7:58 because I'm not a morning person. But
Mhm.
the thing is that you have to do what works for you. And I am so much better as a clinician because I said no and I have
Right.
no
And
guilt.
that's the hard part in the beginning is learning what you don't like doing. That's the thing here. You have to understand, like, why am I saying no?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm saying no because the last time I did this, all these bad things happened, or I was not very effective, or it stressed me out so much. So this is why I'm saying no. That's the thing. You can't just say no in a whimsical fashion. You have to be able to articulate you're saying no because you're not going to be effective. You're saying
Exactly.
no because you're not going to do as good a job as you're capable of doing. And thus, the business is not benefiting, the client's not benefiting.
Mm-hmm.
You have, and that's how you create these boundaries is when you can articulate, I'm saying no because of X, Y, and Z, not just because I'm scared or not because of, I don't know what to do. No, I'm saying no, X, Y, and Z. Like, and that's the way I am now. Like, even when I'm talking to other lawyers and they're like, all right, won't you take on this case? No, I'm not taking it on because here's all the things that are going to happen, and I'm not about to deal with that. You shouldn't do it either, but I can't tell you how to run your business. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just telling you why I'm not going to. Or if I'm talking to a client, I'm not going to take this case on does X, Y, and Z. And yeah, it sucks on the front end because people are upset. And they're like, oh, well, so and so referred me to you, or I've seen you do such a good job. That's part of giving the accepting the grace, giving yourself the grace and forgiveness. Because what's going to happen is you're going to feel guilty, you're
Yep.
going to take it on, and then a month later you're going to be mad because now everything is dumped on you and you're stuck doing something you didn't want to do in the first place.
Exactly. That's so key. That is so important. And then you just feel like, oh,
You
it's
feel burnt out
great.
because you're doing stuff because you feel obligated. There's this book I'm reading about how high achievers can find happiness, and one thing they talk about is you need to determine you want a job that you can say you get to do, not you got to do. Oh man, I gotta
Exactly.
do this. I gotta do that. You want to be able to say, you know what, I get to do this X, Y, and Z. And that's kind of how I feel like, being a JAG or a law professor or having my own businesses, I get to do these things that I actually enjoy doing. I enjoy representing people as a plaintiff attorney. I enjoy wearing the uniform, serving as a military lawyer. I get to do those things. I don't have to do things I don't want to do because it takes time, but you have to put those boundaries in place so that you can say, this is exactly why I'm not doing X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. 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 Just nuggets of wisdom. Is there anything else that you want to share before we close out today?
I would just say for any young professional, again, like I said, the key is what skills are you gaining? Because at the end of the day, that's really what matters the most. Your employer liking you, that's good, that's great, but no job is guaranteed. What is guaranteed is the skills that you've gained that you can use in a different job, or maybe you can use for yourself or some other endeavor as you get more experience. So always focus on how is this helping me grow as a professional?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so key. Well, thank you so much, attorney. Well, you have so many titles. Attorney Nichols, Major Nichols, Dad Nichols, all of that. So thank you. And I know that those tips, those nuggets of wisdom are going to help someone. And it's great when you hear it, especially early in your career. So even if you don't practice it immediately, it's still there. And it's that reminder, oh, wait a minute. They did say it's important for me to say no. And I can
Mm-hmm.
say no because you'll have other people saying you can't say no. You got to say yes to everything.
Because you can say, yes, you want to keep your employer happy because your employer gives you a paycheck, but beyond, and that's a whole nother discussion itself, like entrepreneur versus working for somebody, whatever. But at the end of the day, no one else cares about your happiness except you.
Yep.
So if you keep on saying yes to everything, no one's gonna be like, oh, let me not ask this person to do that because it might be too much for them.
That is so true. That is so true. Well, I'm sure that Miss Harmony is going to be keeping you busy with birthday parties.
Of
So I
course.
cannot tell you again, like never too much to tell you. Thank you, thank you, thank you to my Morehouse brother for saying yes to having a
No problem.
conversation
Glad to
with
be
me.
on.
Thank you.